and so we'll have some further details on that this evening. After that presentation, I'd like to give a short presentation on a suggested method by which the ESSER funds could be used for the board's consideration. So, Lynn, Marcy.
Go for Bonnie.
Well, Marcy, of course, is going to provide you with more detailed information on the federal funds that we have received and some information on just an overview of our budget and our process where we are. As I've told a few people, I was thrilled at the thought that we would be receiving almost approximately $3.5 million in ESSER 2 and ESSER 3 funds until I talked to our neighbors, Puyallup School District, and they're getting over $18 million. But it's all about proportion and all about the size of our district. So I'm going to let Marcy start by giving you a bit of an overview, and then we'll get into some specifics about the federal funds and the information that we want to make sure is in keeping with ACT is transparent, and that we can establish a way to collaborate with our stakeholders to ensure that we use the money wisely. Marce?
So starting off with budget basics, I think you probably all remember most of this, so I'm just going to start with our enrollment for this year. We normally do enrollment roll-up of January. That's been our normal, typical. Well, when I came to you guys last year with budget, we knew normal and typical wasn't going to happen for our 2020-21 school year. So we ended up budgeting lower than we normally did, and we budgeted 2605. Well, we're going even lower this year because we're doing it by our normal and usual, which is our January numbers, and our January numbers were 2407. So that's a decrease of about 198 students, but that's the whites of their eyes who we had in person in January, and our numbers haven't really fluctuated for the rest of the year. They've been pretty close to the same. So this is one of the only years since I've been here that we're projecting our kindergartners actually being lower than our graduating seniors, just because of everything that's going on. We budget our kindergartners for the next year at what our kindergarten current level is. So that's part of the number difference. So if you're looking at what our current enrollment is, it is a little bit less than our current enrollment, and that's because the kindergarten 12th grade deal. Last year, we were talking about getting our K-3 class size ratio dollars. We get maximized dollars if we can get it at a 17-to-1 ratio for kindergarten through third. We are staffing that way this year. We will have, in general, we'll have about 8 sections each of kindergarten, first, and third grade, and 9 sections of second. And with the students we're projecting, that even gives us a little room to grow in each of those grades and still keep the 17-to-1 class size dollars that are it's good to have those. They're extra money, and we want to keep our class sizes small. So we are budgeting that way. It is a few more sections than this year, but we did have the online kids this year, so that pulled them out of the in-person numbers. Our
Marcy, if I may interject, we did do a survey with our folks who were online this year, and we had a very small return of people who were interested. In a matter of fact, we had right around 20 elementary students, K-5, who were interested. So that just simply was not feasible for us to run an online program. So we have provided them information with other options. But the other students who were online appear to be returning to our classrooms, and Marcy calculated them in our numbers. We are taking a conservative approach, as most of our neighbors are. We are in the same place that our neighboring districts are. Probably have less confidence than I've had in years about our enrollment projections, because we just don't know if students will return. And so we are being cautious.
Yeah. Last year we went a little over, but yeah, we spent the first few months of the year letting you guys know what monies I was expecting to lose. And then in January, what monies we did. And so I was keeping you guys up to date on that. The other thing that we talked about is our with the ALE part of it is our 6 through 12 program. We don't have, we haven't had a 6 through 8 program for ALE in the past. We are going to be using a company called Graduation Alliance that provides the ALE services for the students that just aren't ready to come back. And the ALE through Grad Alliance it's a good program. We used it this year for some of our students, and because, and I don't know if you guys remember me saying it, but we lose about $300-ish per kid for every ALE kid that was in our system when they were, because of the way that we get funded for ALE kids. With Grad Alliance, we will actually not be losing those funds anymore because we end up paying them about 85 to 90% of what we get from the state, and then we'll be able to keep the rest of it and spend it on staffing, overhead kind of costs in the district. So that's going to be a switcheroo for us to help us out with the ALE loss we were taking. So that helps out with budget this year.
And Marcy, you said that was for grades 6 through 8.
We're going to do through 6 through 12, but 6 through 8 is an add-on for us for normal years, not this year. We've had 9 through 12 ALE at the high school for a number of years. We're all going to be Grad Alliance right now for ALE. We'll still have some credit retrieval at the high school. That will be in person, obviously. Yeah. But the ALE, the kids that just aren't ready to come back to in person will be offered through a company called Graduation Alliance. They'll still be our students. They will not be registered in another district. They'll still be ordering kiddos. We'll still have a process in which our district looks at the kids and recommends them. If, we'll have filters on, is this a good fit for them or not?
Gotcha.
Mm-hmm.
For any kid, grade 6 to 12.
6 to 12, yeah.
Gotcha.
Because we're going to have those kiddos, and the survey Lynn mentioned, I believe if I remember right, there was about 28 kids 6 through 12 that were interested in staying online. And so we're working on a communication to them about the steps in which they need to take and how the process will go. And we'll get that out soon-ish. I don't have a date, sorry. It'll be soon, but we'll definitely do it before they need to enroll in the fall.
We are monitoring registration. As we've mentioned before, we've gone to a fully online registration. Well, when I say we're capable of a fully online registration, we know for some of our families that isn't convenient or they might not have access. So of course we still accommodate in other ways, but we are able to track enrollment increases, and we're watching that regularly. Along with that, we are in an incredible race to hire the best teachers we can. We have a number of retirees, as you know, from honoring them earlier this month, and that those vacancies are important to fill well. And so far, it looks like we have some good candidates. As Marcy talked about enrollment, we were over in high school this year, and it was a struggle all year because we had to adjust staffing with bits and pieces. We have made a decision this year to look at those numbers and staff appropriately. So our incoming ninth grade class is bigger than our outgoing senior class. So we are adding a few sections of math. We need to add electives. We're adding CTE video production class, and we're adding support for credit retrieval. So we're really pleased about that. Of course, what that leads to is a very tight fit at the high school in terms of space. And we'll be talking about that next Tuesday at the CFAC meeting.
The other enrollment numbers are kind of holding steady. I mean, if the CTE numbers at the high school will be going up with the addition of the elective class, the one that Lynn just referenced. So we'll be getting some more CTE funds in the district, and that will be to cover the teacher, and we'll use that on students as normal. That doesn't affect our budget as it's an in and an out. It's the money comes in for CTE and the money goes out for CTE expenditures. So it's an in and an out. Our special education numbers are holding pretty steady. I mean, there's no large increases. This year it was unfortunate that the state did not increase the over 13.5% of special education that they'll fund, and we're currently at about a 14.99%. So we have about 1.49%, which I can't remember exactly, but I think it works out to just under 10 students that we don't get funding for because of the 13.5% maximum. And it's 13.5% of our general ed numbers that they'll fund for special ed. So that's unfortunate, but it's a known just statewide issue with special ed. I think that's about the basics of it. Normal budget. You'll get a lot more in July, of course, on July 15th. Do you have any questions about that before I go into ESSER dollars?
Just one quick, so are we advertising, is there a way for families to enroll children if they don't have internet access? Okay, because I was worried because, the library where people sometimes did use the internet access for things like that, the library is still closed. So I wanted to check on that.
Yeah, thank you for checking, Kathy. We know that some families can't access that, and we'll do it the good old-fashioned way, and with an enrollment, essentially a paper enrollment. And we'll continue to be open to that to ensure we have access. That shouldn't stop a parent from enrolling their children.
So how are we advertising that? I mean, I would suggest putting something like at the food bank and, a notification like that. No, at the summer lunch program, maybe.
You know what? Thank you. We'll make sure that happens.
We've done some advertising at those places before for those kinds of families. So
that's great. Thank you. Marcy, before you start, I'd just like to make a brief introduction to the ESSER funds. Of course, the ESSER funds have been welcome to cover the costs that we would never have expected unless there had been a worldwide pandemic. And so the funds have come in handy. ESSER 1 supported a tremendous amount of personal protective equipment and practical kinds of hands-on, more things and stuff. With our ESSER 2 and 3, those funds can easily be targeted more toward learning loss remediation. But as Marcy pointed out, we could also use all the funds just to redo all the physical needs created by the pandemic, such as a ventilation system, et cetera. We don't think that's a wise idea. We think that it's important to address the learning loss. And in fact, ESSER 3 requires a 20% use of those funds. I expect that we'll exceed that. But if you want to go into specifics, Marcy, that'd be great.
Yeah, I've talked a little bit before about ESSER dollars, and just to give you guys a refresher, because I don't expect everyone to remember numbers like I do. We got in ESSER 1, the first one, we got $325,495. Now that one is done. We've spent all that. We spent it on the things that Lynn talked about. We had tables for our lunchrooms. We had PPE supplies. We had some additional staffing increases we needed during the pandemic to provide support to our students and to our staff. And that went through that money. Our second pot of money is called ESSER 2. And they go right in order, ESSER 1, 2, and 3. It's really kind of them not to make them really weird names for us all to remember. ESSER 2 is $1,183,037. Of that, there are some restrictions on what we can spend ESSER dollars on, but the ESSER 2 rules are pretty close to the ESSER 1 rules. With the addition of ventilation systems. So ESSER 2 added ventilation systems to the allowable expenditures. And of course, OSPI is so nice to offer us guidance on what we can spend it by, what we can spend it on. So of course, it's like COVID-19 preparedness, providing resources to address needs, activities for kids that are poverty, obviously mental health supports, anything that helps kids get back to where they were. Learning loss is the biggest one, helping engagement, school facility and repairs and all that stuff. The important thing to know about ESSER 1, 2, and 3, when I go over that one, they're all reimbursable. We don't get the money up front. We get the money after we've spent it, proved it, and then they'll give us the money the following month. So we have to have sufficient funds available in our district to spend to get back. So, and the other thing to know about is the most important thing to know about ESSER 1, 2, 3 is it can't really cover the things like sports. So if someone's comparing getting the ESSER dollars to levy dollars, we have to make sure that they're very different. We can't commingle them. They're not for the same purpose. And, the concern with our levy coming up soon is that people will think all this money is, well, it's just sitting in a pot and we can just spend it. We can't. We can't spend it on, they have some specific things, and prohibited uses is usually it's an increase in salary. So you can't give increased salary and benefits to someone for it. That kind of thing is definitely not allowed. So if someone said, hey, just give us a pay raise out of the ESSER dollars, that's not allowed. It is federal dollars. We would have to document it as federal dollars, which is time and effort. So there are some things we can't do. And so that's important to remember. ESSER 3 is our newest pot of money that's just come out. What the state has done is they have released the 20% of ESSER 3 that we're allowed to use for learning loss. Of our amount, our total amount is about 2.6 million, although that hasn't been set in stone yet. Of that amount, they did release 531,464 to our district for learning loss. And it has to be used, they're very specific. They said it had to be used in one of 4 categories, and that is one-time contracts for classified cert or admin for emotional supports, professional learning, assessment system, or direct supports to students to improve engagement. So the ESSER 3, the 20% that we do have access to spend and be reimbursed for, has more restrictions, but the other 80%, they have not given us any guidance as when that's going to be released. They haven't given us guidance on the timeline of that. I believe, last I heard, it could be September-ish. But what's also good to know is our ESSER 2 dollars, we have until, I believe, at least the end of the 22-23 school year to spend them. And the ESSER 3 dollars, we have at least until the end of the 23-24 school year to spend that. What I've heard in one OSPI meeting was that both of those actually have what they call a tidings year, which gives us one more year on both. So the dates, if you hear about them or see them, they talk about being done on the 23 school year and the 24, but with this tidings, it's actually the 24 school year and the 25. So you could hear both dates. They're both, as far as I've heard, are exactly correct, but they do give you that extra tidings year. So you guys have any questions about those?
Marcy, you said one of the 4 things that we could use it for was increasing student engagement.
Hold on, let me go back to that. It was I haven't memorized it all.
ESSER 3.
Yep, ESSER 3. It says one of the use, it is direct supports to students to improve school engagement and accelerate learning. real-time data systems for assessments, for just-in-time data regarding their progress, professional learning for educators focused on learning recovery and acceleration, including assessing student learning and social emotional needs. And then one-time contracts for classified cert or admin staff who will provide tiered academic and social emotional supports to students most impacted.
Okay.
So it's pretty specific on what we can spend it on. And obviously if it's anything else, we cannot spend that 20% on that. Everything that I've heard, it's for learning loss. It really is what it's geared for, is learning loss for the kids that struggled during the pandemic and need help catching back up.
So that Grad Alliance program,
that would not be, no, we would pay that. The Grad Alliance program will be funded by the students that are in it.
Oh, okay.
So the ALE kids that are enrolled will fund the money that we have to pay to Grad Alliance. And we'll actually have a little bit left, anywhere from, it depends on how many, the reason I'm giving you a range is because it depends on the number of students that are enrolled, depends on how much we have to pay to them. The more students enrolled, the more percentage we get to keep of those dollars.
Gotcha.
So, but there is, so say we get $8,000 per ALE student. It's the same rate that we get for Running Start kids.
Okay.
Of the, I'm using a generic number, but you have $8,000 and we have to pay $7,500 of it to Grad Alliance, but we get to keep the $500. And that amount we keep, but the ALE students fund what we have to pay. So it kind of pays for itself.
So we don't have to use ESSER funds for that. So we get to use ESSER funds for some other program or.
Yes, we would use ESSER funds for the learning loss recovery tools that we use within the district.
Okay.
Because ESSER funds are,
ALE or Grad Alliance.
so the ESSER funds are specific on, this is the guideline, this is what you have to use the money for.
Yeah.
They are, yes, we can't just spend them on whatever we want. It has to be within the guidelines that OSPI has provided us. There's the 20% we got is even more specific. There's some pretty, it's really, during the pandemic, one of the categories was anything you needed to do to keep your employees whole. So if we had needed to, during the shutdown, that could have been one of the categories we needed to use it for. We didn't use that pot of money as our staff was not working on Fridays. The ones that, so sorry, I said that differently. Go ahead, Liz.
Well, just as we brought people together to say, what do we need to use our ESSER 1 funds for? We have started a bit of that process now. So we brought cabinet together and said, what are some necessary expenditures that would make sense to support learning loss and maybe needed to support our students because of the pandemic and learning loss. So things like an after-school bus that would provide transportation for students so that they could engage in activities both for academic and social emotional learning. That was one of the ideas. Math intervention teacher, training for teachers, just as the grant allows. So we brought some people together. Today I met with our OEA, Regular Labor Management Group, and as we want to make sure that people understand these are specific dollars for specific uses. These are not dollars that would, as Marcy said, supplant our levy, can't be used for bond type activities. So we want to not only educate people, we also want their input. And the idea that we talked about is having staff build programs designed to capture kids' engagement, to help them in the social emotional learning, to look at the progress that they're making with certain remediation programs. If it's working, great, we can continue to do it. If it isn't, we'll have to change gears, because our student well-being recovery application specifies that we will monitor progress regularly to ensure that whatever treatment we provide that our students, it is making a difference in their progress and their gains. So, well, there are complications and accountability for how we spend the money. We want to make sure that it's used in the best way that meets our students' needs and captures our teachers' talents. And so one of the things that we talked about at OS with the Oregon Education Association today was we aren't looking at a top-down, district-driven program. Are there programs that our schools can build by looking at their data to address their need, programs that are research-based and have merit, and just making sure that we are moving forward with ACT, that we are being accountable to our public and transparent with them, and we are collaborating with our stakeholders on how we use these considerable funds for our district.
I think at this time we have about 2 minutes before we wrap up this segment of the conversation before we move into the executive session. I will postpone my proposal and speak to the board next week in my 2x1 meetings or 2x2 meetings with the board. So my piece of this can wait till next week.
Can I ask a really quick question, Marcy? You had talked about these are reimbursement funds, so we have to spend the money first and then apply to get the money back. So with that and that in the back of my brain, how I'll be interested to see as we start the budget process and we see more on that. Is there a way we can utilize our reserve fund balance to make sure?
That is kind of what we do. We kind of do that now already with some pots of fund. Special ed, for example, we have a grant. We have special ed grant. We have special ed state dollars, but there's also a federal special grant. Title I is the same way. We have to spend those funds on valid uses, and then we get reimbursed for them. Okay. So yes, that is kind of what we need to have reserves for this purpose so that we can spend so we can get reimbursed. Districts that do not have the board has a policy that has a 5% minimum fund balance required. This is something that is definitely needed for specifically. It's easy to see why we need to have that when we have to spend the money to get the money.
Thank you. Another piece just fell into place in my giant puzzle of budget.
If there are no other questions from the board on this topic, I believe we will move to executive session.
Hey, Tony, hold on. We have an action item on the agenda. We need to get that out the way first before we move to executive session. Okay. All right, we have an action item, personnel. Lynn.
Lynn, I think you're on mute. It's going to be last time, really.
You'd think I'd learn. Thank you, Director Holland. I'm asking for the board to take action on the personnel exhibit for 6/17/21.
Can I get a motion?
I'll move to approve the personnel exhibit as presented.
I'll second that.
With first and second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Thank you. Now we can go into executive session.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Marcy. Thank you, Lynn.
Peace out, everybody.
No, wrong one?
Yep, you're back into this one again.
Did we do it? I'm not saying anything. Hey.
See, everybody's here? Yep. Any board comments?
I just real quickly just want to thank once again, and I'll probably thank you again before you finally exit the doors of boarding. But thanks for everything that you have done, for staying engaged to the very bitter end and talking with us. It's always about the communication, and I'm forever grateful.
Yep, agreed.
Agree. Thank you, guys.
Agreed. And thank you for doing it in such a professional way.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Like I always say, you can leave the building with your head held high. You've done a damn good job.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank
And
you.
we're eternally grateful.
Eternally.
All right, not hearing any more comments. We're gonna join the meeting at 6:58. You guys have a good night. Stay cool.
Bye.
Bye.
Hang in there, Melissa.
Thank you.